Hello all and welcome to today's Theatre Art Life session with Eric Hernandez from Cirquelife. I'm going to introduce you to him in just a few moments, but before we get started, if you have not done a webinar with us before, just a couple of housekeeping rules. There's a chat box on the right, so please feel free to ask any questions as we go through this, and we'll be happy to answer any of them. And if for any reason you drop out, you can log back in anytime. Or if you can't hear us, try logging out, logging back in. And if your internet is sketchy today, then you will have a replay that will be sent to you personally within 24 hours of this session. So thank you again for joining us. Now, Eric Hernandez is a native filmmaker based in Los Angeles who is known for his YouTube channel, Cirquelife. Eric started making videos while touring as a lead hoop dancer with the Cirque du Soleil's TOTEM. Since the pandemic, Eric has focused his YouTube channel and his latest series, the Cirquelife Project, into his project to keep performing arts alive during the current large-scale and ongoing shutdowns that we were just discussing before we went on air. So thank you, Eric, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit, before we go into where we're at now, tell us a little bit about Cirquelife and how you got started while you were touring.
Yeah, so I started Cirquelife, the YouTube channel, back in 2014. It was about 2 years after I had started with Cirque du Soleil TOTEM. And you know, when you first join the show, there's a lot of work that goes into it, and getting used to the workload that, you know, Cirque du Soleil is doing 10 shows a week and stuff like that. And, you know, that took all of my focus and all of my energy the first 2 years. And once I kind of was able to find a rhythm and kind of be able to do it without using too much mental effort and all that, I was like, okay, I need another challenge. So I started filming, and I didn't really have any experience filming. And I was just filming with a GoPro at first. I bought a GoPro and I started filming backstage. And the main reason I started filming videos also was just to show my family, like, hey, look at these people I work with. Look at these places I get to go and stuff like that. And it was really just like a personal blog. You know, that was the idea of it. And then I started to just progress. Oh, this film thing is cool. And I have a lot to show here backstage. So I kept making videos and developing the channel. And a lot of the other artists started getting involved. And although the artists were getting involved and it was a fun thing to do, the actual company, Cirque du Soleil, at the time, back in 2014, didn't really have a social media presence at the time. And they kind of liked the idea of Cirque du Soleil being secretive and the magic being in the big top.
Right.
And I completely understood that. And I obviously I wouldn't ever film on stage or ever show any of the content of the show. But I was giving like a first look backstage that had ever been shown before. Like nobody was really doing that. And I did have a couple encounters with like people from the headquarters and the media department.
Calling you up.
Yeah, calling me up. And they said, hey, Eric, you can't do that. Hey, you can't film the schedules. You can't film the, you know, our policies and things like that. And those are secretive. And so I kind of had to step back for a little bit, even there was one day where they even told me, Eric, you're not allowed to bring a camera on site anymore.
Wow.
And then I'd say about 6 months went by after that I wasn't able to film backstage. And then it wasn't until we were actually in Australia and they needed a marketing video. And who did they ask? They asked me. And I said, but I thought you said I couldn't bring my camera backstage. And they're like, well, we need you. And so I started working for them. And then that was where Cirquelife and the people I was working with and management started to kind of merge, and it became more acceptable, and Cirque du Soleil started to gain more of a presence on social media, and they started posting on YouTube, and then it kind of started to become bigger because now I'm not being this like rebellious kid with a camera, but now I'm actually contributing to the brand and marketing, and they started to give me a lot of freedom with that. So yeah, looking back, so that was 2014. Yeah, 6 years ago. So, it might have been earlier. It might have been 2013 actually.
Right.
But
and it's funny though you say that shift happened. I think that not only happened in the entertainment world, but also generally that breaking down of the facades of what companies were and more of a casual behind the scenes background. Social media has driven that shift, I think. And then you either get on board or you don't. But now, most companies need to have that social media presence as well. So it was probably beneficial that you were there doing that kind of content in the end, right?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, any live entertainment, like when you think about what the product is for a live entertainment company, is they want you to buy tickets and they want you to go and watch the show. So I think when it comes to social media or showing what they do in another form, I think that they kind of had the mindset that it would take away from, bringing people to the show. But eventually they realize, and I think more and more traditional performing arts companies are realizing that social media is a powerful tool. And then performers themselves as well. It's something that can help you, So
absolutely. And even something like say the Hamilton that's been put on Disney Plus, people we used to be scared that a digital capture of a musical would not bring people to the show, but in every sense now it's probably motivated people more to go and see that show now that they've seen it so well filmed and well executed on Disney Plus.
Yeah, it gives you the ability to reach a larger audience. So
yeah. And so what happened with Cirquelife when the pandemic hit? You were aware, and I guess you probably put a bit more effort into Cirquelife once you weren't performing every day 10 shows a week.
Yeah. Well, actually, about 6 months leading up to the pandemic, I came up with this idea to challenge the artists that I work with in the big top, like in physical challenges. Like we did like who could do the most push-ups and who could do the most pull-ups. And I created that series, and my channel took off with it probably took me 5 years to get 10,000 subscribers. And I got another 10,000 within that 6 months from that series. So, and before I had started that series, I had kind of been dark on the channel for about 6 months. So I did nothing on Cirquelife. And then I was like, I had this idea for this series. I made about 5 episodes of it. They all had over 150,000 views. And then the pandemic hit. So I was on a roll, and I was thinking, this is the formula. I'm going to keep going with this. And this is great. Everybody's involved in the big top. People love it on YouTube. And then we were in Germany at the time, in March. We were in Munich, and that was when everything started. And when they first said oh, it's a sickness coming from China, and now it's gone to Italy. All of our management and our physical therapists and all that were saying, oh, we'll be okay. We'll be okay. It'll go away and all that. But when it got to Italy, because our next stop was Italy, then we were like, okay, how does that affect us? And they were like, oh, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. And then all of a sudden one day it was like, okay, we can't go to Italy. Italy's canceled, but we'll finish out our run here. We'll have a month or two off, and then we'll get started back in the rest of our European tour. And then news comes out, okay, it's in Germany. Okay, so what are we doing? Oh, well, we're still going to perform, but we can only perform for 1,000 people. So we kept performing, and I was making videos, and I started to document this process of like what was going on with the pandemic. And when we went out and did a show for 1,000 people, a lot of the artists kind of felt uncomfortable just because of the vibe. And it was the first time that you started to see people wearing masks and stuff like that. And when we went on stage and all the audience was spread out, I mean, now talking about it, it's like we're used to seeing it. But back then in March, when we went on stage and the audience was all sitting far away from each other and in masks, it was just really strange to see. And a lot of the artists were kind of like, what are we doing here? And then the next day they said, okay, now you can only do performances for 500 people.
Right.
And it was at that moment that artists just took it upon themselves to say, no, we're not gonna perform. And then that was the last day for, I think, all shows across the world for Cirque du Soleil. I think it was like the 15th of March or something like that. So when I got home, because I had that big run with Cirquelife, with the series and all that, I was really hyped about it. And I was like, oh, we just finished this. I was like, I got to find a way to keep this alive. And the first obvious video was to tell the story of what happened. So I created that. And then I sat around for a week or two and was like, okay, when are they going to call us back? When are we going to get an update? When are we going to go back to work? But I mean, it's funny looking back on it now, thinking that it was just going to last a couple of weeks or so,
Right. Yeah. Here we are still in the midst of it, if not the worst part of it for where you are right now in Los Angeles.
Exactly. So, so I had the idea to use that same concept of having a physical challenge and putting up a cash prize and having people compete against each other. So I wanted to do a handstand competition, and just like I did with the artists. But this time, and originally I wanted to reach out to the TOTEM artists that I was working with and say, hey guys, let's do a handstand competition, but let's do it virtual.
Yeah.
And then I was thinking, why does it only have to be the TOTEM people if it's virtual? So then I was like, let me open this concept of the channel, because it's always been just TOTEM backstage, Cirque du Soleil TOTEM backstage, and let me open up this idea to the world and see how that goes. Why not? And it was a hit. I did a handstand competition. We had like 107 people send in handstand videos, and the guy did like a 17-minute handstand, and they got like 500,000 views, and
people watched him do a handstand for 17 minutes.
There was 140 other people falling out on the way up to 17 minutes.
Right, okay.
So it was like you weren't just watching one guy hold it; you were watching. It was like a grid, and it had all the different people, and you see them drop off, and so it was kind of entertaining to watch. You wanted to sit, and that was also the first time that I used the premiere feature on YouTube, where it's kind of like a live, even though it's not a live video, you can still like premiere it to the point where people can't skip forward, and like there's a chat room, and and there was like 700 people watching it live. So I really like latched onto that idea of like almost hosting an event, kind of like we're doing, like what we're doing right now,
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, what next? And I was thinking, okay, I want to see who can juggle 5 balls for the longest, or how about, push-ups or pull-ups, who can do the most. And then I was like, you know what, let me think of something even bigger than that. And then that's where I came up with the idea for just like a full-on talent show. Like, let's let people perform acts. And of course you need an incentive, you need to give some people a reason. So I put up $10,000 with no idea how I was going to get that money. with absolutely no like I just was no sponsorship lined up, no plan. I was just hoping that my YouTube monetization would eventually help me pay the winner. So I sent out the announcement, hey guys, make a video. It can be 1 minute, $10,000 is on the line. Send in your videos. They have to be in 2 weeks and you'll be in. And I received 125 videos. And about 60% of them were Cirque du Soleil artists.
Wow.
So I was like, wow, well, first of all, I mean, all these artists are doing the same thing as me. They're sitting at home. So if somebody's putting $10,000 on the line, like, well, I mean, why wouldn't you want to get on it? So
build a video and get in the ring for the competition.
Yeah. So I was just like, okay, this is going to give all these artists who are in the same situation as me something to strive for. And it's going to keep the Cirquelife channel alive. So that was kind of my thought going into it. And that was back in August. Yeah. And when I had this idea, I didn't realize the nature of it and how long it would actually have to go. Because I'm still doing episodes. I'm not sure if you follow the Cirquelife YouTube channel, but we just barely finished the second round, which was the top 40. So we watched 100 performances, which was 10 episodes of 10 acts each. And then then we narrowed it down to 40, and now we're watching the top 40. We just finished watching the top 40. So from here, it'll go to the top 12, and then we'll continue on with that. But it's been a journey. It's like 6 months in.
Yeah.
And
it's a long competition.
It's a long competition. But it's been fun. It's been fun to connect and meet so many artists. Like, I was so confined to my little world of those 40,
your little bubble of TOTEM gang.
Yeah, those 47 artists, which I miss and love very much. But it's been great to meet so many different artists from around the world and non-circus performers too. Like, there's a lot of dancers and singers and things like that. So yeah, that's what I've been spending most of my time doing.
And because you've watched a lot of videos and a lot of presentations, what would you advise people who are trying to promote their work or make a video? Because we've obviously entered into this virtual world, and I think even in some of the projects that I'm talking about in the future in the circus realm, that we're talking about virtual auditions, right? So this is going to become really important. People are not going to necessarily fly to somewhere to audition for something in person, and you're going to have to represent yourself on video. So do you have any tips for people on presentation, quality, audio, lighting, etc.?
Yeah. I think that a big thing I've seen with a lot of the performers that have sent videos to me is one of the biggest differences is some of them just set up a camera and perform like the camera is kind of somebody watching from the side or somebody kind of peeking in on their performance, and others put the camera and perform to the camera. They use the camera like a person. So one of our biggest artists in the competition right now, her name is Tori Boggs. She's a jump rope girl, and she's got 200, 300,000 followers on Instagram, and she really has mastered the technique of connecting with somebody through a camera and looking it straight in the eyes and giving it a nice smile. And I think that's the biggest difference is some people will really perform to the camera and others will kind of have it look just kind of on the side, like, hey, watch me do this. And so I think that's a big aspect. Definitely little stuff like lighting, of course. A lot of times people will film outside and they'll shoot into the sun, which then makes them look like a silhouette, which is kind of like an artistic choice if that's what you're going for. You know, they'll be like, oh, there's sun out, so they're like, it's light out, let me go use natural light, and then they'll shoot with the sun behind them.
Yeah. Rule number one for photography, not to do.
Yeah. So, I mean, surprisingly, a lot of people would send in videos like that, and I'm like, we can't see your face, we can't see any of the details. So, you know, use the sun, have the sun behind the camera, and then obviously audio. A big thing with that is if you're performing an act and you have music to your act, some people will have a speaker with the music and they'll have it kind of just off in the distance for themselves to reference without thinking so much about the final product of the video and how the audio sounds in the video. So that's definitely something to think about. If you know a little bit about video editing, you can always incorporate the music in post-production and add it in. Because at the end of the day, audio is a huge part. You can have average video and have really good audio and it's still a good product. But if you have bad audio, it makes a good image look bad. So really focus on audio and I mean.
So what do you, when you're doing when you started editing, what programs did you, I mean, you said you started with the GoPro. Have you moved on to something else now? Or, you know, because I guess iPhone cameras and stuff are getting better and better. And
iPhones are so good. Like anytime anybody asks me, Eric, what camera should I buy? What camera should I use? It depends how much you want to put into post-production and like rendering files and all that. But at the end of the day, the iPhone and the audio settings that are already built into filming a video with an iPhone, the colors that it gets, the way it corrects itself is amazing. The iPhone is incredible. So I always tell people, you know, if you're not willing to fully dive into the video world, like just use your iPhone. The iPhone is amazing. That you could even film in 4K, you could film in slow motion, you do all that with the iPhone. Just get things to surround the iPhone, like maybe get a tripod with the iPhone for the iPhone, get a little light to go on top. You could even get mics for the iPhone. I've gone all out with camera gear just because I have a passion for it. After I had the GoPro, I had a GoPro, then I went on to like a DSLR. I had like a Canon T3i, which is like between $300 to $500 range, like nothing crazy. It's when you get into lenses and stuff like that it gets pretty expensive. And that kind of did the job for me for a while. And then I'm really into like tech and all that. I love watching like YouTube camera tech and stuff like that. So I upgraded from there and I got a Canon 1DX, which is this. Let's see. That's this camera here. It's kind of like a photographer camera that also does video. And this is also an SLR. And once you get into stuff like this, you're looking at like closer to like $5,000, you know. But there's a medium between those two. You can get a good camera for like, if you want a really good camera, you could get something for like $800 or $700, like.
And post production, you use what sort of program do you use to do your post production?
So I use Final Cut Pro.
Right.
Final Cut Pro. I know a lot of the like industry standard. A lot of people use Adobe Premiere. But for a long time, I used iMovie. So and iMovie goes along with the iPhone and all that stuff. And I've actually done some videos where I've filmed with the iPhone and edited the video on iMovie on the app on the phone. So
wow,
that's like a walking studio. So
no, it's, you know, I think iMovie is a good introduction if you've never done any video content before, right? It's fairly intuitive and it gets you started. And then if you're serious about it, then you delve, like you said, you delve into the next levels and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and Final Cut Pro is a easier transition from iMovie. It's kind of a similar layout. Premiere's kind of a whole different learning curve than iMovie. So yeah. And
what about how important it is? I think it's quite interesting that you said of the woman that plays to the camera and stuff for her followers and her presentations online. Do you think that may be the future when people are auditioning, that people will need to play to the camera? And, how important do you think it will be in the future for performers, artists, circus artists to promote themselves and create a brand that is visible online?
Yeah, I think it's really important. You see a lot of performing artists right now creating businesses, teaching, and stuff like that. But I think that we're going to see more and more platforms that are hosting live performances where the artist will actually have to film. So it's definitely important. I think it's something that we have to get used to. And it's I think the most difficult thing about it is that when you perform on a live stage, there's that adrenaline and that energy that you take from an audience.
Right.
So when you're performing in front of a camera, you kind of have to find a way to generate that yourself.
That's got to be difficult.
Yeah, but you could do as many takes as you want. Right?
That's right. No, you're right.
You know what I mean? So there's pros and cons and things like that. But
yeah. And what's the evolution of Cirquelife in terms of you're going to finish this competition, and then what's next? What have you got ideas about how you're going to evolve from there?
Yeah. So when I started the channel, it was all like vlogs. It was more personal. It was really like, hey guys, I'm here in wherever. I'm here in Bali, and I'm here for 3 days, and I'm walking around and or, hey guys, I'm home for 2 days off tour. And it was more personal. If you go really back to like the beginning, like my first 20 videos on the channel, it was a lot more of this, like, like vlogging. And I kind of want to go, after I finish this project, I kind of want to go back to vlogging, but at the level of cinematography that I am now.
Right.
Like, before I was vlogging with a GoPro. So now I kind of want to do like overly produced vlogs that almost feel like a documentary or a movie. And I have the idea kind of about things like how an artist is surviving during this pandemic. And there's a lot of little things that, I've had to do, and a lot of changes that I've had to make. And I kind of want to give an insight into that whole life and how that is, and staying in shape, and, financially surviving, and mentally. And so I kind of want to dive into that world and do kind of a bring Cirquelife. It's kind of like I gave Cirquelife to like the performing arts world. Like, hey, you guys, my audience is your audience. Like, take it over. Like, it's not about me, it's about us. And I think once I finish this project, I think I might come back to that a little bit more, just because that's the nature of the situation that we're in. And I would like to do the handstand thing again. I would like to do a lot of these things again where I do involve people, but the Cirquelife Project has consumed all of the content on the channel, and it's consumed all of my time as well. So I think that once I'm done with it, I will kind of, go a different angle where I'm not so locked into a series like this. Yeah. It's been an amazing experience. And eventually I realized that I did have to reach out to brands to to try to pay this cash prize. And I did have to find different ways to monetize the whole platform, which has been an amazing learning experience for me. And that's kind of been the nature of this whole situation that the world is in. A lot of these traditional companies that have never really had an online presence have had to adapt and find ways to make money online. And I think that when things do come back to normal, that we will return like stronger than ever and more educated online because of what we had to adapt to.
Sure.
So like, even if, you know, hopefully one day Cirque du Soleil TOTEM or Cirque du Soleil in general comes back. And if I was to return to tour and be backstage with everybody again, there's because of what I've learned, there's so many different things that I would do. Like, even looking back now, like, why didn't I ever do this that I'm doing now? Like, so.
Yeah, a lot of and like you said, we spoke before, the barriers of what people are acceptable as using, like what kind of content they're used to looking at, what they're interested in, all of that. Yeah, I can imagine you've probably got quite a lot of ideas for when you get back on tour. Because then if you've got to come up with ideas in your own little house, then you've got so much more food once you're actually traveling again.
I know, right? I've had to like stretch my mind to find content in these between these four walls. It's like.
Do you think that that's part of the thing that's kept you focused and sane throughout this period?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I try to reach out as often as I can to a lot of the artists that I was working with, and some of them have, like, you know, been fortunate enough to like find work or do things. Like one of my best friends on the show was Massimo, and he was able to, like, he got work in Berlin for a while and was working on another show, and we were all calling him a traitor, like, what are you doing, you know? And and he's been able to find different ways to stay busy and stuff like that. But Cirquelife definitely has been like a huge blessing for me to stay busy.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful that I created it when I did, because it's definitely given me something. It's given me purpose during this time. And it's been a great tool to, you know, host the Cirquelife Project and help
bring the community together.
Yeah, bring the community together. So I'm definitely glad that I put the time and effort into it when I did, because it didn't always seem like it was worth it. You know, sometimes when I was staying up late editing a video when I had a show the next day, and people were like, Eric, what are you doing? Why are you editing video? Like, why are you filming and editing videos all the time? Like, we're doing 10 shows a week. And sometimes I didn't know why either. I just had a vision. I had an idea and I had a vision, and I'm glad I stayed with it, because it's been like my security blanket during this whole pandemic. So
it's amazing. And what do you hope for post-pandemic, you know, for either live entertainment or yourself personally?
Yeah. So we just had our first meeting with Cirque du Soleil. It was like a Zoom meeting with like 700 of us, like all in the Zoom chat. And they estimated that we could be back the fourth quarter of 2021, which would be like November, I guess, October, November. So I guess that would be post-pandemic. But I mean, who know? At the end of the day, like, who knows, right?
Right.
Who knows? But in the meantime, I'm doing, you know, Cirquelife stuff, but I've also been doing some other like freelance video work as well.
Right.
And actually a project that I'm working on at the moment is the Herd Museum, which is in Phoenix, Arizona, is where the National Hoop Dance Contest is held every year.
Right.
like, because I'm a Native American hoop dancer, and that's actually where Cirque like found me. Yeah, like at the hoop dance competition. And I've been competing there since I was 14, and it's every year the second week of February. And obviously this year, they normally have like 10,000 people that come throughout the day to watch this hoop dance competition. So it's not going to happen this year, obviously, because people can't gather. So they reached out to me. They saw what I've been doing with the Cirquelife Project and all that stuff. Once again, things that you don't. You do things and you don't know why you're doing them. You don't know how they'll pay. You don't know how they'll pay off.
Yeah.
But if you kind of just stick your head down and go, hard work pays off. And it was about a month ago that they reached out to me, and it's a big deal. Like the Heard Museum is a prestigious. It's one of the biggest Native American museums in the country. And they reached out to me and they asked me to produce the entire virtual hoop dance contest this year.
Wow.
So I've been working on that, which has been a lot of work. My brother is also a filmmaker who does music videos and stuff, and I've been helping him. So I've been doing like freelance video work here and there. And so come November, depending on where I am and how established I am as a video maker and a freelance artist, hoop dancer, I'll have to make the decision then, to return to Cirque. Obviously, I would love to see everybody again. And I would love to work there and do that. But having a taste of this life and being in control of my own schedule all day, every day,
it's kind of nice, right?
It's kind of nice, and I kind of like the entrepreneurial, aspect of that. So, of course, Cirque du Soleil is an incredible opportunity, and traveling the world and performing and all that. But when you go there and you are there, you're locked in to that. I mean, it'd be great. Yeah, it'd be great for Cirquelife, and it'd be great for all that. And I mean, I'm not dogging it at all. Like I definitely am excited to return one day, but I mean, we'll just have to see. Like, I'm not going to sit around and twiddle my thumbs and wait for it to come back. Like,
yeah, it's such a good point that you make. I often think that it's so interesting to see how the pandemic completely just took away many people's life and existence that they rely on, and I think for performers, unlike say, I've worked in the backstage realm.
Yeah.
There's no end date necessarily to my career if I want to continue to work. Yet for some performance elements and for performers, their body wears out, or at some point they need to transition. And, I mean, it looks like you've taken something that's been a passion and you've started to cultivate into something that now could actually be a career, which is fantastic. And, is it something that you would recommend any performer, to start laying foundations and groundwork as to what comes after their performing career?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's kind of like having a backup plan, like especially as a performer. I'm a hoop dancer and I'm on the ground. I dance, and I probably could do it for, at least another 10 to 15, 20 years, until my knees give out. But, yeah, definitely. I would recommend everybody to kind of have a backup plan. Even if you are in a great situation right now and you are making great money, save it, and find ways to make your money work for you. And that was something that I was lucky that my parents always told me to do. They were like, it's not how much money you have. It's not how much money you make. It's how much money you save. And when I was on tour, they're always like, save for a rainy day, save for a rainy day. And now that we're in a rainy day,
there's a lot of rainy days right now.
there's a lot of rainy days right now. So I would definitely say I mean, I think developing a whole nother skill, there will be those that are able to do that. But just from my experience and working with the people I did at Cirque and stuff, 90% of the artists that I worked with, Cirque du Soleil consumed, I mean, performing and being there consumes all of your mental and physical time. So you do have to dedicate 100% of your time there. I was fortunate enough to be in a situation where in a 2.5 hour show, I was only on stage for 18 minutes.
Right.
So I was backstage, and I'm a dancer. I'm on the ground. So, I mean, I can stretch and I can work on my abs and things like that, but I'm not necessarily doing injury prevention and all the other stuff that a lot of the artists have to do. But a lot, I'd say a big skill that a lot of the artists would work on is a lot of them would study and try to educate themselves. A lot of them were studying to become like physical trainers, and some of them were doing their online degrees and stuff. So, I mean, just the concept of having a backup plan, because performing and being on stage, unless, you know, like yourself, you get into the backstage aspect after, or, you know, you become an artistic director, or you get into the behind the scenes after. As a performer, it's temporary. It's not, I mean, unless you're a clown and you could do the clown until you're like 85 years old. I don't know. But
I know.
But what about, I mean, so you work backstage. So, I mean, it's a whole different, I'm speaking from a performer standpoint, but I mean, I'm sure you have kind of a different perspective. And
well, you know, it's really hard, because I think that everybody's experience is different depending on what country they come from or where they were when the pandemic happened. You know, some people were stranded in Macau and are still there, and some people can get unemployment benefits and some people cannot. So it's really hard to sort of, you know, I mean, I've been fortunate enough, like you, to develop a diverse skill set, so I can apply my skill sets to things that are not necessarily live entertainment. So more installation aspects of it, or other sort of planning and project management projects. So for me, you know, like you, I would say, you know, diversity in skills is something that's really, I think, something that's changing and shifting in our industry generally. You know, you've even in how you've shifted into the social media aspect. You've got, you know, it's more open, and people need to brand themselves and promote themselves and delve into that, but also being diverse. And what I love about entertainment, and, you know, you see it too, is like the more different elements of entertainment that you can do, at the end of the day, the more employable you become, rather than being a specialist. So I become more of a jack of all trades, master of nothing kind of person. Okay. But it becomes useful in especially in times like this, you know. So
and I think that was also a big part of my situation as well, is that I'm a Native American hoop dancer, and TOTEM is the only show that would ever have a native hoop dancer. Otherwise, I wouldn't ever be in a circus. A lot of the acrobats and circus performers have opportunities to jump around and go to different shows. And I never really thought that I would have that chance unless somebody decided to create another Native American show. So I wanted to figure out what I had to do to create one myself.
Yeah.
You know, so I kind of took that route of like, okay, I'm learning from all these people around me. I'm seeing how this big production works. Instead of just coming in every day and playing my part, like, let me open my eyes and see how this big engine works, and learn that stuff, and take that away from the instead of just going in and dancing every day and leaving. So I kind of used video as my platform to stretch out. And now with the people that I have featured on my channel and all that, I'm realizing the power that having a platform has. And the same way that these performing arts companies need to transform into social media, why can't it go the other way around? Why can't a YouTube channel or a online platform then, have the resources to create a live show? So
yeah,
that's also another, idea that I have eventually with Cirquelife. But, and the thing is, Cirquelife could still be going 5 to 10 years from now. Like, there doesn't ever have to be a deadline on it unless like YouTube shuts down. But I don't really see that happening anytime soon. So I don't know. I think, possibilities are endless. And
what I think we should do, Eric, is when live shows come back together, because one of my goals in Theatre Art Life is to do some really quality backstage documentaries of live shows, because what tends to happen is that people will come and document something, but they're not necessarily from the industry. So they're not always having the right conversations or getting the right shots or getting the right story. So I think between you and me, we could probably do that pretty well. What do you reckon?
Yeah, definitely. That'd be cool. That'd be really cool. And theater, because you guys have a YouTube channel and you guys are creating.
Yeah, I mean, mostly we're doing interviews and webinars like that because it's the pandemic and we can't get out. But the goal of 2021 is to sort of start to get, once things get going, get into the foray and see, a little bit more like yours, a kind of documentary style content and stuff, so people can really see the meat. And we're such a special, unique community, and it's really nice to see something that isn't sort of just journalistic, glossed over. This is the show, but like, let's really dig into the creatives and the way that it gets done and all of that stuff. I really think there's a lot to be shown and demonstrated, and most of the amazing people that you meet and only show a fraction of themselves on stage, right? And there's this whole gamut of other things about those people, their stories, their history, their skills, that don't necessarily get shown on the stage. And I think that's an interesting story.
Yeah, exactly. People want to hear that story too. So
yeah. Well, I think that's, thank you so much for joining us today, Eric, and sharing this quarantine life. I wish you best in Los Angeles right now, because I know it's fairly intense.
Yeah.
I just wanted to hang on. Show.
We got some people watching here, right?
Yeah. Anyone got any questions before we finish up? Before I finish up, I also want to show that we have some upcoming webinars. Next week, we've got a discussion with Sam Humphrey, who is one of the actors from The Greatest Showman, and a masterclass, A Brief History on Makeup and Hair, which is Megan Manson, who runs Academy of Makeup and Wig Design, and her love for makeup and hair and history is amazing. And if you're interested into that, please come and join us, because it's going to be really, really exciting. Dylan has thankfully jumped in and put the registration link there if you'd like to join for next week's webinar. Eric, any last words to our audience that you'd like to say moving forward into 2021?
Yeah, let's see. I can see the list here of names. I see a Melissa Miller. I think she was one of the dancers in the Cirquelife Project. She's from Good Evening from New York. I think that if you're part of the performing arts industry, just find a way to not lose it. If you're a performer, try to find a way to not lose your skills that you worked so hard on, all these years, and find a way to stay in shape. I know that's definitely hard. And I think that, of course, I'd like to make predictions and I'd like to be as optimistic as possible. Cirque du Soleil tells us the fourth quarter of 2021. And I'd like to hope even sooner. I'd like to hope that by the summer, things will be cleared up and we could get our beach bods and go on the beach. And you know, be ready for all that. So I would say just try to keep a good just try to be as strong as you can mentally and keep it up. Don't lose it. Don't lose your art. So
yeah.
And go check out Cirquelife. Subscribe.
Yeah, go subscribe to Cirquelife, and you're going over 77,000 subscribers now, so you're doing well.
Yeah, just hit 77 like yesterday. So
that's amazing.
I have a goal to get to 100 because when you get 100, YouTube sends you a plaque, and I really want the plaque.
I want the plaque.
But
oh, that's fantastic. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. We will also promote it. We'll put the link in on our YouTube discussion today, Eric, and hopefully we can get you a few more subscribers. Best of luck for the rest of the competition and also for you in 2021. And I'm sure you and I will keep in touch anyway.
Thank you. Yeah, you as well. You as well.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Thanks for joining us today. See you later.
All right. See ya.
Bye.